artificial intelligence. Now, AI has become the sexy word and everyone is talking about it. You've probably heard about ChatGPT, which was initially known because someone wrote an essay and received, I think, a 5+ grade just by asking the artificial intelligent machine to write the text for him or her. I mean, we as a steel company, obviously it sounds like, well, what have we to do with artificial intelligence? But actually, we've got some insights into it. Firstly, because I did have at university a subject called literally artificial intelligence, so I know the basics of it. Back then, many years ago, I just thought, well, yeah, it's one of those things which sounds fancy, but then when you get to the mechanics of it and the maths, it's a bit boring. And I remember having the same with aerodynamics, where it sounds glamorous, but then when you start doing the equations, it's far from it. So if you're not aware of what AI is, I'll try to explain it very briefly. Basically, you probably know what a weighted average is. So for example, you take 5 people and ask them for a score between 1 and 5. Yet some of them are a novice in that field and others are professionals. So you would then assign to each of that person, let's say, expertise level, also on a scale from 1 to 5. So a novice will have a score of 1, whereas the pro will have a score of 5. So now if the pro says that something is on a scale of 1 to 5, also a 5, then with his weighted factor of 5, his score would be 25. Whereas if a novice also gave 5 points, because his weight is 1, the total amount that he can score is 5, and then you add it up, divided by the amount of participants at 5, and then you end up with the sort of right, or at least an indication of where things are. So artificial intelligence is exactly the same. It uses various components, the base components, and each one of them has a multiplier or the weighted factor. And the way AI learns is that it, by default, just, let's say, sets all of them at 1, sees what the result is, then it needs feedback to understand whether this result is good or bad. And this is where the learning of the AI comes from. So then it adjusts one parameter, increases the value of the multiplier, checks whether this is a better result. If it is better, then it knows it can continue increasing until it sort of reaches the maximum score, and then tries playing with other factors. If it's lower, then it means it's not this factor that is important, so it lowers the score and tries another weighted factor. So that is why AI needs a lot of data, correct data to learn from, and then through an iterative process, it can become better and better. So these are the basics, and indeed, this is the way it works. So ChatGPT is a wonderful tool. I really recommend you sign up and just have a go. Although, because everyone else is trying the same, the servers are very busy, and they've recently introduced a plus version, which means that you basically pay. It's not expensive. It's $20 per month. So that's okay. And if you actually use text for work or whatever else, you will really appreciate it, and the $20 will actually be a bargain. So now ChatGPT, there are many other providers of AI. I'm just referring to ChatGPT because it's the one that sort of made the news, and also the one that I'm playing with. Has also, sort of, others have used it for various things. And there's the story where someone, I think it was in Brighton, they used ChatGPT to write a letter to the council so that they basically withdraw the PCN and fee that he received for parking his car in the wrong place. And apparently he won the appeal. So that's why it's becoming more and more interesting as to what the capabilities of this tool are. Now, it is an AI, which means it is a machine. So when you start asking questions about feelings, it gives up straight away. When you ask him or her or they, how do you feel? Their response will be very blunt, saying, I am an AI, I do not have any emotions or feelings, therefore I can't answer this question. But the thing that really surprises me that the AI adds something, either a sentence of encouragement or points you to sort of another direction, sort of signposting you. So it is really, really, really clever. Now, there are others who use ChatGPT for funny things. Well, we might say they're funny, but they might be life-changing. And you probably won't guess it, but it's actually for using chat-up lines in Tinder. So I heard that and I decided, okay, I'm going to give it a go. So I actually asked ChatGPT, chat up lines for Tinder. Basically nothing more than that. And the response is, sure, here are a few chat up lines for Tinder. I must be a snowflake because I've fallen for you. Do you have a map? I keep getting lost in your eyes. I couldn't help but notice we both love, common interest in squared brackets, want to chat more about it over a drink sometime? If you were a vegetable, you'd probably be a cucumber. That's a cheeky one. Do you believe in love at first swipe, or should I unmatch and swipe right again? Again, a bit of a cheeky one. I'm no mathematician, but I'm pretty sure we're a perfect match. And then there's this one that is actually very clever and philosophical. I was going to wait for the right moment to message you, but I realized that the right moment is right now. And the previous ones, they were a bit funny, whereas this one is actually damn true and damn right. And I'm pretty sure that you could get some interest by responding this way. Next one is, if I were a cat, I'd spend all 9 lives with you. Then your profile picture is stunning, but it doesn't do you justice. Want to send me a selfie to prove it? Which, yeah, I guess something that many would prefer doing, proving the photos before going on to the date. And then the final one here is, are you Australian? Because when I look at you, I feel I'm down under. So, yeah, interesting. And then at the end, like I mentioned, doesn't just leave you in the middle of nowhere. It actually summarizes things. And the way this time this summary goes is, remember, chat up lines are just a conversation starter and they can be hit or miss. It's more important to be genuine and show interest in the person you're chatting with. Good luck. I mean, that is incredible. Like, honestly, it's almost like a piece of advice you'd get from your parents, where it actually encourages you to still be human. And that's why my jaw drops, that it's not just a machine, just being a robot doing its thing. It almost feels like it's not only a human, but it's like this mentor. So I'm really, really impressed. Now, I tried a few other things, like asking what is orienteering, and the response I received was just amazing. Then I asked about VFR flying using 300 words, and I received a very nice essay using 300 words. Then I tried a few other stuff, and then I went on to something very, very interesting. The question that people have been asking themselves ever since, and the question is, what is the purpose of life? And I thought, well, I was actually convinced that the response is going to be the standard, like, I am an AI, I can't talk about these things, and so on. Whereas, to my surprise, the response is, the purpose of life is a philosophical question that has puzzled thinkers for centuries. There are many different answers to this question, and it ultimately depends on an individual's beliefs, values, and worldview. From a biological perspective, the purpose of life is simply to survive and reproduce, as this ensures the continuation of a species. However, from a more philosophical or spiritual perspective, the purpose of life can be seen as more complex and multifaceted. Some people believe that the purpose of life is to seek happiness, fulfillment, and personal growth. Others believe that the purpose of life is to serve others and make a positive impact on the world. Still, others believe that the purpose of life is to achieve spiritual enlightenment or to fulfill a divine plan. Ultimately, the purpose of life is a deeply personal and subjective question that each individual must answer for themselves. It may involve exploring one's own values, beliefs, and desires, and finding ways to live a meaningful and purposeful life based on these things. The search for purpose can be a lifelong journey and may involve many different experiences, challenges, and lessons along the way. Now, this is really, really impressive. Like, it's something I really didn't expect from an AI. And as you can see, it's really philosophical. There's a lot of wisdom in it. It's very weighted. It's almost like I said, it's from your parents or maybe even grandparents who are giving you like the last wishes to you, or it's just like pointing you in life. So, yeah, and surprisingly, these kind of answers provide comfort, like for myself, because on one hand I am excited about this technology, but on the other hand I'm frightened as to what my children's life will look like. But with AI being able to provide these kind of sort of weighted, balanced responses, I sort of feel that we are in safe hands. But I might be wrong. It's something that we are yet to explore or find out. Now, another interesting thing I did is I asked, how are you feeling? And yeah, this is the standard answer you would get. As an AI language model, I don't have emotions or feelings like humans do. However, I am functioning properly and ready to assist you with any questions or tasks you may have. How can I help you today? So as you can see, it is very, very human-like. When you ask about the weather, it will turn you down, maybe point you into other directions. And then I ask the question, how old are you? And the answer, as an AI language model, I don't have an age in the traditional sense. I am a machine learning model created by OpenAI, and my knowledge and capabilities are constantly updated and improved. And then, as the final thing I'll read from ChatGPT, I wanted to have a bit of fun, so I asked this tool to provide me with an excuse at work. So I asked, help me with an excuse at work. And I was expecting to receive a list of excuses like with Tinder, everything to do with traffic and car accidents and the likes. And the response is, I'm sorry. As an AI language model, I cannot help you with providing a false excuse at work. It is not ethical and could potentially have negative consequences for both you and your employer. It's important to be honest and transparent in your communication with your employer and to take responsibility for any mistakes or issues that may arise. If you need to take time off or address a personal matter, it's best to speak with your employer openly and respectfully to find a solution that works for both parties. Wow. I mean, when I read this, my jaw just dropped. It's probably the best piece of advice that you could receive. So again, it is really comforting that AI isn't just a blunt tool. It has, as funny as it sounds, a bit of intelligence in it and provides sort of interesting answers. Now, the other question is, and I'm not sure we could ask this tool, AI, this question, but I'm just wondering, how influenced is this AI based on me, myself? Because when you subscribe, you have to click one button or the other, proving you're not a robot. But by doing so, you actually give permission for the tool to browse your history and maybe see your email. I'm not 100% sure, and maybe even not. There aren't many people who know actually what this tool can read. But maybe the answers are actually written so that I find them correct. And maybe if someone else asks exactly the same question, they might receive a totally different answer. And if that is the case, then it's even more like jaw-dropping. It's like, wow, if the AI can answer in different ways depending on the human, then I don't know even where to start in terms of manipulation. I mean, it's probably the top of the range when it comes to playing with people's expectations and emotions, almost like hearing from a salesperson what you wanted to hear, therefore you buy it. And it will be like a different level, and it will be so easy to manipulate people because they'll hear what they want to hear, and then you can slowly and gradually, as an AI tool controller, you could influence them because you basically build trust with this tool. So it is, like I said, either very exciting tool or a very scary tool. So going back to us as a Steelo company, we actually introduced our AI tool into our processes in the past. And where we found the use of AI was in quoting Steelo projects. So as you can imagine, when we start our process, we receive a set of drawings, mainly as PDFs, which we print out. And the idea was that we basically wanted to scan it and have the software spit out all the Steelo sections with their lengths. So I talked to an IT company about them doing something like this. And we got going. We started working on this. And we got to a point where it indeed scanned the drawing and highlighted the Steelo, just using like a color that just overrid the initial drawing. But then what we found, and it sounds funny these days, but back then was probably 2014 or so, before AI came the sexy word. The problem back then was that cloud storage was bloody expensive, because we had to scan each drawing, I think it was into BMP files, just so we had every pixel. And each page weighed around 10 meg. So if you had 10 pages of the drawings, it was already 100 meg. And if you had 10 projects, that was 1 gig straight away. So again, 1 gig back then in the cloud was just way too expensive. So that was unfortunately a deal breaker. And the other one was that unfortunately we did not have enough learning material. So as I described at the beginning, something to feed the machine with so that it can then adjust the multiplying factors so that it actually works consistently. And we would struggle big time. The other problem was that we received drawings from different structural engineers, and each one of them was different. So one could have been printed have a font, a computer font, others were handwritten, and then the code for each beam could have been different. Sometimes there were mistakes, therefore we had to allow for mistakes in the naming. So there were a lot of variables, and unfortunately it didn't work out. So that's how we sort of got to know AI in the real world, and how we could have adopted it many years ago, but unfortunately it didn't work out. But now, as we can see, there are other tools, and I guess writing text is just the beginning, because there's also AI for graphic design, for art, for movies. So yeah, this leads us nicely into the question of where does this leave humans? Because we can now generate content for our websites, for blogs, for various social media platforms using AI. So it's becoming sort of a weird situation where it is not humans writing text, it is a computer writing text which we think humans will be reading. But the way platforms work is that they have a built-in algorithm which then scans the text and sees whether it is interesting or not. At the moment, I hope, I just wish it is still that the humans read it and they then sort of gauge whether it's okay. It's like if it's been read over 7 minutes and it roughly should take 7 minutes to read, then that means it was a human reading it and it means full engagement. Therefore, let's rate this article a bit higher and so on. So that would be the traditional, let's say, right way. Whereas it's already happening, there could be bots that replace the human reader. So it is the bot that filters out the information to then distill it down to something that is of interest to the final reader. So effectively, slowly and gradually, like brick after brick, we are approaching to a world where it will be computers talking directly to computers. leaving us as humans completely out of the process because we are not needed. They can just have fun. They can create text. They can respond to the text and rate it. And before we know it, and I know there have been some experiments, and the result is that the AI systems create their own language. They deviate from what we know as I don't know, any language in the world, and they start creating their own language with probably many abbreviations because they can work on abbreviations. We will find it difficult. So this has become now a philosophical question because it really threatens the purpose of humans. Now, I know I sound like I'm one of those where the sky is falling and technology is going to kill us, as people did during various industrial and other revolutions. But, and I hope you agree with me, it is actually looking that it looks that this is going to actually affect us, that we literally won't be needed. You might have seen this movie, and if you haven't, I really recommend it, about it's called Idiocracy. And I've even heard on the radio, I've heard this phrase before, where people summarize it now, saying that it was meant to be a comical thing, just for fun, whereas actually it's become a document, like a documentary. And unfortunately, with ChatGPT and other similar tools, we've made a massive step towards that, where even myself now, I don't have to think about writing sentences. I don't have to think whether it's spelled correctly, whether the grammar is okay. I just type in a few words, ask the AI to write it in 100 words, 300 or 500 words, or whatever I wish, and I get ready-made text. So the question, like even I ask myself, is why the hell do my daughters need to learn how to write if they can, or they will definitely have access to this kind of tool? But the problem is if they don't learn, they don't practice writing, they won't be creative. They won't get their brain cells to actually work, which means that they will end up being idiots like in the movie Idiocracy. So yeah, it is very difficult. I hope we're not all in this sort of bubble where we think, oh wow, this technology is great, let's just take advantage of it, and then eventually this technology will, don't want to sound horrible again, but will kill us, or at least make us obsolete. Maybe, and I've heard this also, maybe we'll end up in a situation where computers work for us, they generate the money, and we can sleep all day long or sit on the beach and enjoy the breaking waves because they'll be generating money for us. Like I said, I've heard this a few times. It sounds great, it sort of makes sense, but I don't think that will be the case. Similarly to fax machines being introduced, there was this idea that when fax machines come in, people in the office will have basically like 50% more time, therefore they'll be able to sit down and have chat and socialize. Whereas as we know, it doesn't stop there, you just fill that space with something else, you basically become more productive. So yeah, it is very interesting to see how AI develops. The beauty is that it will be in our lifetime. So yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. And yeah, we will see how things pan out. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know what you thought, whether you've got other views on the future of AI. And please remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our future Steelo podcasts. Thank you and see you soon.